Look at this guy.
Hey, Sophie.
What's going on?
Nothing special. How's your end?
It's great. It's great.
I,
They're just have a lot to talk about. So that's wanted to get the team together and just basically see everybody's faces first,
yeah,
and then just talk about the cool things.
cool.
There we go.
Hey guys,
Hey, Adam.
what's up?
Mitya, I have another Slovenian joining.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it just there are two of you. I thought there was only one Slovenian. It seems there are two.
That's the
you're
second
hiring all
one.
of this, all of software developers from Slovenia, right?
Yes. Yes.
Silly, hello.
Ellie.
Glad to see you all.
All right.
Awesome. Awesome. This
Ben,
crew.
Thank you for an engine. It's so nice.
Mr. Edmund.
Guys,
what's
how
up?
are you doing?
Come on.
Good.
Any more swimming accident? Did you cut anything?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
You look skinny.
Yeah, 30 kilos down, so thank you.
Holy shit.
Yeah,
Congratulations. That's great.
yeah.
Awesome.
Hi.
Mr. Avion.
Tiago's here, Mr. Data Brazil.
Yeah, he's there we
Hey
go.
guys. Long
Yeah,
time
yeah.
no see. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Hey, what's up? Let me just change my background.
Miss Tracy, hello.
Hello. Hello, hello.
What's
We've got
up?
the bosses here. But it's shades. Here we go. Alex, still not getting enough sleep. I can tell from the hair. Mr. Patar.
Oh, hell yeah. Dad to be. Congrats.
Hey, thanks.
This is awesome. Big crew.
Yeah, is Andre trying to impress us?
Yeah, he's just cool naturally. I don't think he's trying.
Hello, everybody.
Here we go, Mr. Mladen.
Mladen.
I like the beard.
Yeah, nice one.
Yeah, you look like a Taliban militia.
Yeah, something like that.
Bald head and actually in the beard.
Yeah, and completely burned out from the sun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You were the only one amongst us that you were actually doing reverse aging. So you were just getting younger. So that's I don't know if that trend continued.
We'll see.
Avian, still cold in where you are? It's your signature hoodie.
Just don't have enough pockets, so that's why I carry this around.
Oh, so you wear it for the pocket. I have the best actually solution for you. Remind me to send it. I'll have one. It makes you look like weird, but it's just better than wearing hoodie in summer.
Yeah, definitely. It has its ups and downs, but all right.
Mr. Ibrahim, we don't see you. There we go. Where are you? In Ankara, Istanbul, or some other place?
Who you are talking to?
Yeah.
I think it's Abraham.
Coming. Mr. Radeon. So on. Beautiful. This is people keep coming. This is awesome. This is awesome. Okay, so let me just actually quickly quickly start. Probably, I don't know if you guys actually got the email as well, but before we get in, I just want to make sure that kind of remind everyone of the good history that we have. It's this is something that it's not about work, but really it's something that finally allows us to be able to create a network that bring all the meaningful relationship that we had and the meaningful goals that we had, and all our kind of goal of pursuing wealth to bring it together. And just actually the fact seeing you guys here, it's the first testament to actually to what the value and the purpose of what we are trying to do. It's nothing else. It could have actually brought this group of people back together again. And this is great. I'm right there. I'm already satisfied with what this new venture is bringing us, because this, getting us together, it's, it has tremendous value, and I'm glad all of you guys are here. This is comes out of our style and attempt to basically not let go. You guys been part of the journey. You guys saw all the pivots that we have, all the satisfaction that we had around pursuing the truth and pursuing something that is valuable, but all the heart feeling that we have in terms of truly put that into something that creates momentum and eventually creates the actual value and then wealth for all of us. But I think we have the secret now. I do think, at least from what I've seen, from what we've heard, we have the last piece of the puzzle that allow us to create all of our contribution throughout the times that we were at the staircase, or actually even before, and make it immortal. Make it something that this value lives beyond us, beyond staircase, beyond me, beyond you, and ultimately, hopefully in our lifetime, to see it flourish, or not. But I think it's actually, we are putting all of our energy, all of our tears, all of our pain, all of our happiness, all of our genius into this, actually, to this platform that I'm gonna talk about. And then we can just kind of get deeper into, okay, what it means to every single one of us and how we can actually be part of that. So the journey you guys are aware of, right? Ultimately, our goal was to make real estate better, easier, faster for the consumers. And in pursue that, we started with APIs, then we did data, then we actually did AI. Then we went get our licenses, became brokers, and actually the loan officers. But the entire time, it didn't feel that actually our work, it really contributes to basically to the end consumer. Not people still can buy houses fast. They still can buy houses without paying tens of thousands of dollars in commission. This still exists. Which is a testament to what we've done. It's just didn't really have a value. But we basically, aligned with our virtues, we dig deeper to just say, well, why is that? Why basically everything that we have, it seems valuable, it's solving the problem, but it's not actually getting the traction that we need. And that, ultimately was resulted in one problem, and one major problem, which the entire market of real estate in the United States, and the same thing in every single country that you guys are in, is controlled centrally. And it's benefiting the few. In the United States, it's controlled by the MLS, and it's controlled by NAR, and it's controlled by the GSEs. And as a result, every single protocol, every single system that is put in place is to benefit the few, not the customer, not the innovators, but the few that it's controlling that. And to be able to realize the value and the efficiency of AI and APIs and everything else that actually we worked hard on, we need to detach it and make it decentralized. And as soon as you start using the words decentralized, you're starting the words that actually you need to democratize to be able to ultimately bring a trustless system in a way that, you know, ultimately they can transact without somebody be the chaperone and actually the guard. There is one word that is actually describe all of the above, and it's blockchain. And that got us to actually to thinking that what is it that we need to do, and can we actually do this fast and quick to be able to realize all the features, all the cool things that you guys actually and us we put together to be able to start realizing the math. And that's nothing other than actually a blockchain protocol that we call it the elephant. And a token that we call it the Mahout. So elephant and the Mahout, there are a lot of actually stories around that, but really the most tangible meaning that we can actually do that if the data is the elephant, you need some sort of a control to be able to make this data useful, clean, and actually then and trustworthy. And the token that we are actually going to talk about today, the Mahout's job is to write this actually as data. So our goal is to ultimately remove the centralized control of the data from MLSs and the GSEs in the United States first, but actually the goal is global. And even for the initial actually versions of that, we included 2 additional countries that we're going to focus on. But that doesn't mean that actually you guys, after we are done with these countries, you cannot apply that to Slovenia and Croatia and Ukraine and Turkey and any other country that you actually feel like applying that, because the same principle actually exists. And ultimately turn the entire actually property record and all the associated information as NFTs that is open to everyone, that they can actually look at it, they can use those information to transact, and ultimately use the transactions and the fees that they're actually generated to be able to update the information. And what we think at that point, companies like Staircase or many other companies, they can start building distributed apps, the dApps on top of this network, that now it's not going to have the limitation that we all face. And remove that control, and now innovation, it's going to flourish. Majority of actually this data originally is going to be on the IPFS, because as you guys know, the real estate data is deep and complex, and just having that on the chain, it's going to be very costly. In addition to actually the property data, we are having a mechanism to be able to put the most important actually information about the property, which are the pictures, on the network as well, and create actually a set of incentives and actually a structure and the protocol to be able to get all the old pictures on the platform. We can talk about it. But the more important thing, and the reason that you guys are all here, this network cannot start because it requires to collect a very much distributed data set that in United States in 3,500 different databases, in Canada is in one actually pretty bizarre database, in other countries they're all over the place. Bring it together, rationalize it. And that model in blockchain is basically called the Oracle network model, which ultimately every node operator can become the connection between the network and the source of information. And through blockchain consensus model, we allow to be able to rationalize this data, validate this data, and put it on the network. And that's something that actually allow us to be able to tap into a set of developers that is actually ultimately they believe in the same mission, and just get them to become these node operators and ultimately own the data and the quality of data from the transmission perspective from these sources to the net. And as a result of that, the network and the transaction and the gas that is produced is going to be distributed amongst these people, these oracles. And ultimately what it does is basically it's going to shift all the waste and the transaction fees that exist in the legacy model and actually bring that into the new world that we're going to actually operate. So that being said, I want to kind of walk you through a little bit around the economics of what this model going to look like to be able to give you, okay, number one is how big this thing is. And number two is how I'm going to make money, right? How is actually me as an oracle be able to do that? And this is an amazing actually the opportunity, because not only this is a valuable thing and it has a meaning and it's immortal, we are trying to design that to be able to shift the entire the value prop to be able to incentivize oracles in a couple of different ways. And number one is, as early oracles, you guys gonna basically create these NFTs and mine these tokens, right? And like any other blockchain, if the network becomes valuable and the network generates transaction, there is this asymmetric correlation between the value of the token and what we have. And that's why the Bitcoin is $90,000 and Ethereum is $1,000 and so on and so forth, because it's is correlated to the demand for the transaction. Especially utility tokens like Ethereum. Ethereum is very valuable because there's a lot of stuff happens on Ethereum. And if we enable this network that a lot of transaction happens on the platform, the value is it's going to go up. But in addition to that, very similar to the other protocols and other networks, there is a gas involved. The one thing that internet didn't get it right, and that was ultimately in to a degree a demise of internet, or the weakness of internet, is the TCP/IP wasn't created like blockchain. It's free. So as a result, you have spam. As a result, you have DDoS attacks, all kinds of stuff. Blockchain has the same, and it's open exactly like internet, but it doesn't happen because there is a construct called gas, which you want to basically do a lot of updates and do a lot of things on the network. You got to pay for it, and the spammer is not going to spend tens of thousands of dollars of gas to just basically spam your email or any other malicious. So this gas is the second mechanism that the oracles, they're going to get paid. That this is something that the protocol, it will control and distribute. So quickly, if you look at this little table that I created, it's looking at the United States. There are similar tables does exist for other markets, Canada, Israel, and we'll basically eventually gonna figure out and think about more globally. But focusing on United States, currently somewhere between $40,000 to $50,000 is basically the consumer pay to transact a $400,000 home with a $300,000 loan. And this comes in a variety of form of fees that they can be touched, like the taxes, because government, they do that, but fees and commissions that they have significant amount of waste in there. And that waste is caused by two things. Number one, centralization of data, and number two, lack of modularization of the activity that it's being done. As an example, there is a value for someone to basically help you sell your house. Because if somebody wants to come buy my house and I'm the one open the door for them, I'm not a good salesperson. I'm not going to be able to talk them into buying the house. There is a job for someone to sweet talk them to be able to buy the property. Does that worth $12,000? Probably not. But it might worth, $100 every time they have a conversation with someone. But unfortunately, these type of skilled work and the things that it requires a specific skill, one, something like actually sales, that is not something that you can replace, or some of them are the actually skills that legally you can't do. You cannot basically convince someone to get a mortgage and calculate, you need to have a license, or you can't go look at somebody's house and point out all the problems it has. You need to actually have a general contractor license and so on and so forth. So by law, you need to be skilled, kind of allocate it to that. And if you look at that actually 40 to 34,000, maintaining those actually valuable work and skilled work, we're still going to be doing that transaction, but look at the amount of savings that we're going to actually have. So we bring it down from 44,000 to 4,000 as part of the process. And this is something that ultimately the consumer is going to get the benefit of that. So for consumer that now they're paying 45,000, they're going to end up paying 5,000, which is extremely valuable. And that might be something that ultimately creates, after the initial movement, to be able to redirect the transactions from the legacy to the model. But all these activities, when it happens, it generates gas. And this gas is basically divided amongst three parties. Number one, the current network that we're going to use. We are going to use Polygon as the network. But one thing that from a technical point of view we are considering is eventually we're going to create our own L1 and L2 and basically move, because ultimately in that type of a movement into the layers, there are some savings involved, and there are some feature focus we can actually bring to that. But for now, it's not the priority, because we just want to basically get the benefits to the consumer first and then go into the optimization, which is very aligned. We have it's the network. One thing that I don't know how much you guys are study these type of blockchain activities. Elephant protocol is not going to belong to no one, but it belongs to everyone, right? Ultimately the elephant as a foundation is going to be a non-profit organization. Before in older blockchains, these organization was created in countries like Switzerland and Cayman Islands, because there was no such a constructs in the United States. United States, when you go create a company, they say, okay, who owns the company? Who's on the board of directors? What is the stock allocation? You can't say, it's a company that just belongs to everyone, and we don't know who they are. Eventually, they're going to have some tokens, and they're going to decide. But now it's something that is allowed in a Wyoming state that we're going to do that. That's kind of in general is the DAO, is basically the foundation. So the part of that gas is going to the DAO, and the rest of it is going to be going to the oracles. And ultimately, if you look at in aggregate, what's going to be the activities that is going to happen is, somewhere in the range of, the $40 million for the Polygon, and basically $140 million for the Polygon, $40 million actually going to go to the DAO, and $17 million is going to be in oracles. These are all estimates, so don't take me basically as the final numbers. But there is a big allocations of millions of dollars that it's going to actually be to the oracles. And we do believe the entire United States can be covered by somewhere in the range of 100 to 150 oracles that they basically go to these the counties and just put processes in place to be able to get the token. And ultimately this, $20 million a year, it's going to be allocated and distributed amongst those. And obviously, if you are a more savvy oracle, you can just basically go and just take, 5 largest states in the United States, California, New York, Massachusetts, and basically be the primary oracle on those. And just that allocation is going to go a lot higher from the gas. And you can just decide to do one county and just see how it actually works. So it's up to you. And just in a gas, if we allocate that per oracle, per the coverage that I talk about, it actually generates something in a range of $50,000 to $100,000 per oracle. So, ultimately, if you do a basic job outside of how much the Mahout token gonna go up, it's a tangible money. Someone can become a full-time oracle and just basically make good amount of money on these gases. What's contingent here is number one is all the data needs to get on the network, and we need to basically get everybody to transact. So this is not a guaranteed money, but it's actually from all the stuff that we've seen, this is something that ultimately is going to allow us to basically move fast, get the data, and with all the new things that is happening in the world and some of the anti kind of establishment and issues that geopolitically exist, these type of independence is something that actually majority of the people, especially the new generation, they encourage, they like, and to be honest, from a blockchain point of view, this is the new way of how the world and the social constructs needs to exist. Before, to be able to create social constructs, we created basically a hierarchical problem, governments and the bosses and everything else. Blockchain is in the digital age is a new governing structure, which says, there is a protocol that makes everybody do the right thing. There is a protocol that allows everybody to actually do to be honest, and we don't need someone policing it, nor MLS, not GSEs or no one else, and ultimately it's going to come back. And then eventually, just the last point that I want to make before I actually open that for any type of questions that you might have, the broader use case of this is actually infinite. Because now, if you bring the next element, which is the IoT into the mix, which is now not only properties are the NFTs, every single device that enables your house, it is an NFT and it's on the platform. And the maintenance of that, replacement of that, the insurance of that is part of that. Now, all of a sudden, you bring a lot more transaction to the network above and beyond these categories that now you're going to have every single plumber to be on the network, every single electrician to actually be on the network. So the expansion of this is significant. And there is only one reason it is significant. Because after what Bitcoin has done to be able to create a mechanism of value exchange and money as an important social construct, the next most important social construct is home. Every single one of us is spent significant amount of our energy to work to be able to pay for our house. And that's something that is the fuel to this, that ultimately we are not inventing a new system. We are not inventing a mechanism to get oil from the ground and then we'll figure out how to use it, go create cars. The cars exist. Houses, there are 150 million of them. It's in the United States that is being traded. Millions of appliances exist. The only thing is there is not effective fuel to be able to allow the movement of this asset, and the Elephant protocol and the Mahout tokens is the enablement of that mechanism. With a new gas is a new energy source that allow us to be able to hook in all these old appliances, and they're gonna work not only perfectly, but a lot more efficiently than what prior to that was. And as a result of that, we solved this in the United States, Canada, Israel, Croatia, and just basically we go. And in a second, think about the possibility. The big aha moment is our first client that is going to come in after we get some of these transactions is Airbnb. Airbnb is going to hook up, instead of their own database and getting every customer to go in and just hand the information, they can hook up into this. Every single property database from Zillow, they're going to hook into this, because just basically getting this data is for free at the end. And they can enable transactions. So all of a sudden we have a enormous amount of momentum that we're gonna have in terms of the consumer of this data as a legacy. And that's where all of a sudden this becomes one of the most valuable networks and protocol, because there is a significant demand and everybody realize the efficiency that they can have in their system. They can redirect it to the blockchain. And this how we're going to become immortal. This is how you guys can actually kind of be part of the part of the process. And then now let's open it up to basically any question or anything else that you guys want to know.
Let me jump in just for a second, and then we'll open it up. First of all, just so great to see everyone. The fact that 20 of you guys showed up just to say hi, to hear what we have to say, to see each other, simply makes me really happy, and hopefully says something good about this group. I'll just summarize it from like kind of a business perspective, because ultimately we're asking you guys to make a business decision with how to allocate your time and personal resources. The realization we had simply was, whether you're building APIs or apps in this space, we are always reliant on some sort of centralized database. The multiple listing service for real estate, the GSEs for mortgage, and those systems were the definition of centralization, which was really legacy companies, legacy data models, all of these highly permissioned sources where you had to apply and you had to get approved, and you had to have specific use cases approved, which generally restricted from any innovation. They were extremely expensive. So you're basically sitting on a shit protocol layer. The MLS and the GSEs are protocols limiting everything we did. And in some sense, the first version of the business was fundamentally exactly wrong, which was to try to take these legacy protocols and make them look and act modern, which they're designed not to, because that's how they make the most money. To be much more specific now, think about like county data. So county data exists and it's public, it's out there. But you have to go through these systems to get it. So what this protocol does, and what you guys would do as oracles, take, for example, Florida. Florida has 10, 20 million properties. It's on the county, it's on 10 different county websites. They have kind of a different URL data structure, they're paginated, et cetera, but all the data is there. In the current system, the consumer's paying a human to pull the data up, type it in, and the system, the data actually has a structurally built-in half-life. Every 2 weeks you have to resubmit something. If you bought a house and sold it the next day, you would have to re-pull all of this data. So not only is the data hard to get to, you pay a human a lot of money to get the data has no history, right? It's like structural amnesia. These are the opposite of the blockchain and decentralized protocol sort of principles. So if you say as an oracle, okay, I'm going to go for the state of Florida. I'm going to take these 10 counties. I'm going to learn the URL structure. I'm going to script it. I'm going to pull the data down. I'm going to submit it to the chain. When there's 3 other oracles that submit the exact same data, that data gets minted to the chain permanently. You earn token. So now you have ownership in the protocol. Now when people go to transact and they use that data because it's been verified by consensus, you're maintaining the script that looks for deltas and submits updates. Now everything becomes easier. They're not paying a human to pull the data. They know the data is high quality. The data has memory, all these things. So you not only got paid in the token to put it on chain in the first place, but every time it's used and modified in a transaction, you're paid again. So you're basically the owner of this data object. And the more it's used, the better, and the more innovation. So you're getting paid twice. The first is sort of equity in the protocol in the sense of you're getting these really early tokens. The second is you're getting paid on a transactional basis. As Sufi said, there's nothing that restricts you from now going, you're an expert in Florida and look at other states that have similar data models, or saying, in my country, I went and I looked at the public records, and there's there's a single database in Croatia, and so therefore, fuck it, I'm going to put, it cost me a couple hours of my time to script it and put it on chain, and let's see what happens. So there is this like great extensibility. It should be a good business model for you guys. You can recruit friends to be oracles, whether you're managing oracles or you're doing the work yourself. But now that data is on chain, for everyone let's see if you mentioned Airbnb, everyone that's using property data, it's trivially easy now for them to use Staircase will, as a kind of a bridge layer, will have a set of APIs to get to the on-chain data easier. Either they can go run a node and get the data themselves, great, or they can go through an API, so they basically can hot swap. So instead of pointing to a shitty set of MLS, maybe I as Zillow should point to a perfect on-chain representation of this data that has all these great characteristics. So really, it like the deeper we get is like so clearly the thing that needs to be done, which is blow the whole system up, recreate it in this modern sense. And you guys as entrepreneurs now, the superpower is data, right? Everything else, like real estate and mortgage, are data products. It's crazy that they're managed by people pounding on keys, which is not how it should be. So hopefully just a really great opportunity. And then also it's immortal in the sense that once it's out there, right? So we can build a movement, recruit people. We're not beholden to funding. We're not beholden to VC investors. Like it's a total exit from the system that we've sort of fought the whole time. So I'll pause there and just, open up for questions, and Sufi, I'll let you kind of lead the Q&A. Thanks, guys.
Hey guys. So what can I tell you that I didn't cover?
Maybe not tell, but I have comments about actually concerns. I am deeply in mortgage banking standards. I am part of their blockchain architecture, a mortgage, multiple different development work groups where we're building standards, and I know the adoption process of the industry, United States industry. My biggest concern is adoption by vendors and customers of the new standard. Besides that, it's just a concern. Besides that, if I can somehow be helpful, I would be more than happy to be helpful for this initiative in the way of, in March 2025, I completely rebuilt mortgage banking standards platform, moving from their Excel XSD into the platform that I introduced back in 2019. And in 2025, we migrated. It's not a show off, guys. It's just now we have an opportunity to extend mortgage banking standards, United States mortgage banking standards, with your ideas, with your additional data structures, but make it standard for GSEs, Fannie Freddie, make it standard for the industry by extension. There is such thing. So two things. First, there is a concern of adoption. And second, there is an opportunity to promote, to make this blockchain approach standard for the industry by using the platform that now MISMA and Mortgage Banking Association is using as kind of like a ground level to bring all their standards and adopt their standard. Again, sorry for hijacking. It's just, I would like to contribute. I would like to be helpful. I would like to be as helpful as possible for this initiative, because I had the same feeling. I'm mostly actually on mortgage banking documents, because that's where the mess is, where you submit the document, then you make the changes to the document, and you have no idea which document is actually correct, but now they are contradictory. So there is a smart doc standard in mortgage banking standards, and blockchain is crying to get to these documents, mortgage banking documents. So that's where probably another opportunity for your initiative as well. So I feel it, I feel the pain, but on the opposite side, I know how difficult by the industry to adopt new standards, to change their systems. I'll shut up. Thank you.
Thanks, Vasily. And yeah, it's basically the first point that you made is, ultimately this is not it is a problem, but there is this is a problem for any innovation that actually exists in the industry, because it is crushed by the lifeline that is controlled by the actually like masses. Our goal is to open this up, and very similar to Bitcoin. It's actually, it might have, you know, it might be immediate, it might be a long time, it might take, many years, but this is where ultimately we're gonna open this up, that innovation contributions of actually individuals like you is accessible, and everybody can take benefit of that, and is not controlled by X, Y, and Z that they approve that. So if it's a valuable thing, hopefully it will be adopted. But there is a important aspect that ultimately this is not for everyone. And to a degree, this is something that is against how everyone to this point made money. There is opportunity to make money, but it's not through the ways that they have. The mortgage company is not going to make money by increasing the rate by 1% to make $3,000 of actually broker incentives, but it costs, due to the compounding, $30,000 for the customer. That is not how it's going to be make money. But if somebody is willing to adopt the new principle, there's valuable work. There is basically financial advising and actually helping someone to be able to create a perfect loan application. It's something that is worth money, not tens of thousands of dollars, maybe 100, maybe 200. So that is the case. And the standards and what actually ultimately from a DAO perspective we are going to connect. We are not, and this is something even at Staircase that we did. Our goal is not to reinvent vocabulary, and because the industry already understands these vocabulary and these standards that exist. But unfortunately, the layers and actually the smartness that exists in that vocabulary is not something that is actually useful, and everybody has to spend a lot of money and energy to be able to make it. Our goal is to bring that semantics into the smart contracts, but from a structure perspective, we are not reinventing, and the work that you've done and what you are offering is going to be very valuable to the network.
I would also just conceptually keep the way I think about the architecture is threefold, right? There's the protocol level elephant, which is just the data. We're just saying, you guys with your skills can go get all of this fragmented, shitty public data in the US and perfectly script it, get consensus, structure it, mint it, put it on chain. That's the data layer. You're not asking anyone to change. We're just now saying that there's infinite needs for this legal, like, kind of source of truth data that's now perfectly available. So that's the data piece. There's, kind of the Staircase API layer, which hooks into the blockchain, but just makes accessing on-chain data easier if you don't want to go run a node. And then there's the app layer, which is listings app, LLM, creation of mortgage, whatever. And so if the data is perfectly available and I'm a mortgage company and I'm buying it from First American for 100, the board team struggled, with that data, I'm paying $150,000 to First American for this shitty data, or I can just go use this better API. So we're not going to change what a mortgage is, the regulatory, like the output always needs to be the same. But instead of paying First American, or instead of paying a human to go type it, I have this perfect on-chain, very cheap, very reliable data. And so it makes it trivially easy for people just to make that change. And economics are wildly in favor of doing that. And the second is, think about innovation. Today, if you wanted to build the TikTok for mortgage, which seems like very obvious, a bunch of houses, and I like a house and I dislike a house and I vote, and you can't do it, because you would show up to the MLS and say, I would love to license your data and photos for $1 billion. The MLS would say, no, not interested, right? Or if you're OpenAI and you're like, I want to produce the best AI, real estate assistant. There's no well-structured data set to put in, to sort of put in the context of that specific bot. Once the data is on chain, any LLM company can come, use the data, train. Like there's so many future needs. So the bet here is from your guys' perspective and from a just like your own time and economics and desire to get tokens is this data that is now expensive, fragmented, shitty, no history, etc. If it's perfectly on chain, has perfect memory, easy to access, and cheap, that the economics to that versus today are so overwhelming that some people are going to make that change to consume the data from on chain. And that innovators actually might come and build because they don't have to ask for permission. They just go and they buy some tokens and they are able to interact. And I think that's the fundamental ask is in this sense, it's a true build it and they will come because this is the data that powers everything. We know how to perfect the data. And then there are other things we go do to just simply promote and see what happens. Alex, sorry. Alex is asking if some specific platform SDK we're managing the activities and work is already production ready and how close for me to be as an Oracle. So if you do want to take that.
Yeah, so we basically, the smart contract, we basically have it. The team, internal team, they have used it. The only thing that we haven't done, and it's gonna be available, is the token and the basically allocation because the token is not registered. And ultimately by definition is the tools are, this is gonna be on actually on the network. We're gonna publish a lot of our CLIs and the SDKs that it can be used or guidance for anyone to basically use it. And you can create your own as well. But the timeline is if we are ready, we can leverage. So if anybody's ready, they can raise their hand, let me know. We can just get you involved, and then the kind of the official allocation of tokens and everything else is going to be in 3 weeks when we have the token structure and it's officially it can be distributed, so on and so forth. So the short answer is yes, with the basically, but it's there's some caveat that needs to be considered. If we can discuss further, and I'll actually schedule a call to be able to do demos for actually some of the work that we've done. We basically have 2 counties already came in. We've tested the consensus model for those. So we are ready to be able to expand it to the other counties in Florida and Texas and prepare the data first. And then when the token is ready, we need to redo these hashes back so they have correct association to the token ownership of NFTs or Oracle. Basically the performance model, incentive model, those are the things that is still not ready, but the mechanism of getting the data, loading the data, it does exist and it can be utilized. And we'll basically look for any one of you guys that want to basically contribute. We'll hook you up and then we'll figure out how do we collaborate until the tokens are ready. Did I answer a question? Hopefully.
He dropped, but
Yeah. What else? Any of you guys that actually been part of it? Everybody knows about blockchain and just probably trade it, but in terms of like development contribution to actually to any open source that you've done or that you want to share with the team, this is a good spot. And if not, hopefully this is going to be the first time that you're going to do that.
Sophie, would you be interested to give a brief review, update, demo, kind of like a problem solution? There is a mortgage banking standards blockchain community of practice, and companies get there, they discuss different problems, pain points, and solutions that blockchain for mortgage banking can resolve. And with your proposed solution, I think it could be a good platform to introduce, to get some feedback. If you're interested, if you're interested, I can arrange.
Yeah, we'll take any introduction. That's quite all right. definitely. We can help.
Then I'll communicate offline. Thank you.
Thank you. Which one of you guys think that actually this is interesting? Raise your hand.
Good answer. Good
Which
answer.
one of you guys think this is like the dumbest idea you've ever heard? Come on, Pete.
Electric cars were the dumbest idea that we heard a long time ago, but now they're.
The ideas are at least getting slightly better.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's awesome. Awesome.
Sophie, one question. I know that it's a diversion, but like regarding the connection to the IoT, how will this work?
So, so right now, there are a couple of things that it's basically even right now it's important. When you think about the property, and I'm getting a little bit both technical and just basically deep from an industry perspective. One of the things that is part of the transaction that is very, very important is the improvements that has happened structurally or the things that is inside the house. If you read some of these actually listings, they talk about it. The kitchen was renovated. The fridge is a sub-zero. We just changed the air conditioning. And these are all the things that is actually that it's basically promotional to be able to just say this property is better. But none of them there are structurally validated. And number two is basically they're not searchable, right? So as a result, it's in the blob of text. One of the things that we are doing, which eventually gonna go to a full-blown IoT, but right now it's actually is on the photos. When the photos are being minted, we are allowing the oracles to be able to leverage AI to be able to pull out information up to 500 basically tagged information from the pictures. So now when you search for actually a property, right now to just say I'm looking for a 2,000 square foot property with 3 bedrooms. Imagine for a second that you can actually search to just say, I want this, but don't give me anything that actually their air conditioning is old, or they don't have an island, or the bathroom door is pink. This is what you want to search. The data, when it gets into the network, it allows, and then when it's actually indexed in the graph, which basically is one of the components around the IPFS, is gonna have hundreds and hundreds of data elements that inclusive of the IoTs, the devices and basically things that they're there, and additional information. And because this data is gonna be hashed, eventually we are expanding basically Oracle networks to allow the performance of these things, they actually go on the network. So imagine that an immutable ledger that is looking at the performance of your fridge or your thermostat or anything else. So that is the view to be able to expand. Right now, the actual part of the data is more on the things that makes the house more valuable. You know, did you upgrade your fridge or your AC? But eventually the model is going to include every single device and basically appliance that is in your house, and ultimately extend to be able to allow that your performance data to go on the channel. So your thermostat information is going to be on the IPFS that shows, you know, all the interruptions that you have. So now it's not up to me to lie or tell you the truth. I can go look at the property and just basically say, well, these are the properties that they have a lot of interruptions around your AC. I don't want to deal with that. I'm going to go look at other ones to basically agree. But for a second, think about that every piece of information, it's going to be on the network. And because it's on the network, it's free to look at. Where you need to pay is when you need to make an update. So when was a database, free database of every single information about the property, it was available that you could freely query and just basically build on top of. And that's what Adam is referring. that the first step of that, we need to create that valuable data. When that is actually in place, then all the cool things and actually the use cases is going to happen. Because that data is not freely available, every conversation is basically is problematic because it's someone else's data and you need to pay for the data and it's not normalized and it's not accurate and it's not clean and it's basically it's formatted different. Our goal is to basically create this database and to be able to apply the principle, it needs to be on the blockchain to be able to make it free, to be able to make it actually accurate, and to be able to make it in such a way that everybody can take advantage.
All right. Up or down?
Question.
Go ahead.
Question regarding the purpose of this solution. Is it for mostly for rental? Because you noticed Airbnb and you also mentioned some information that is more relevant to rental than actually selling.
No,
What is
no,
the
it's
main?
actually, it's going to be 150 million property in the United States going to be on the chain. How you want to use for the transactions is basically is up to the dApps that they build that. But our goal is to do 150 million properties in US and then Canada, Israel. So it's actually is all the data. And here we go. Cyrus, Adams, baby. So while you guys were gone, we were busy. You know, not only building software, you're just like we're creating human too.
2-week-old baby boy Cyrus. So he wanted to say hi. Pitar, you're next.
Yeah. So the use case is not it is right now we are basically we as a staircase as actually as a dApp we do have real estate license, so we are actually leveraging it to be able to buy, sell, rent property. We have mortgage license, so we're gonna actually originate using this data. But the most successful thing is basically the staircase is outcompeted in every single thing that we've done with other actually dApp providers to be able to go do things that we cannot even imagine. Our job is not to think about what can be done. Our job is to basically make the data freely available so everybody else can figure it out.
Mitya had a question about kind of cost and updates. Cost of storing the data before the customers and updating will be a lot of transactions.
Yeah, we do have actually the calculation. Obviously, the at the beginning of the process, especially for the oracles, we're gonna have some incentive models to help you guys. But majority of the data is actually on the IPFS. They are fractional pennies that is gas that is needed to put onto the exchange. So it's minimal. Just get million property is going to cost $100 to just put it on the platform. For the initial oracles, we can actually find ways to be able to help you guys if you need a little bit of a boost to airdrop you some Polygon tokens or basically when Mahout is ready, Mahout tokens to be able to get the gas going. But that is minimal, and the entire goal is that because you're staking and you're generating, obviously in your wallet, you're gonna start having enough to pay a little bit of the earn out that you have for the Mahout to put in the data for pay for the future gas, and that ratio is basically significantly lower compared to what you're gonna get as the value for the gas.
And one thing to note, which is important and why Bitcoin works, is to mine a Bitcoin, you have to invest time, money, electricity, compute, such that you want to protect your Bitcoin and protect the network, right? So for you guys as oracles, it's not going to be kind of free and easy, because if it were free and easy and you could go do it tomorrow, yeah, if you keep the tokens, great. If you lose the tokens, who cares? Fuck it. So it can't just it only works if you guys have to invest some IP, some time, a little bit of sort of gas cost to put on chain, because then you need the network and want the network to be successful because you've put a real investment in. You want to recruit other oracles. you want to maintain the data to, so you are the Florida person or the Texas person or whatever. So it is structural in a correct decentralized protocol and a proof of work. We use the term proof of truth because it's truth of the data for the Oracle to put a little bit of skin in the game, because then that actually truly creates this virtuous flywheel. But Sufi and the team have done a ton of optimization of sort of what's on chain and what's IPFS and what's stored where, to make sure that it has the right kind of risk reward characteristics and is scalable, because initially to put 150 million properties on chain with no customers needs to be practical. So Mitchell, it's a good point.
And one thing to emphasize that it's actually what Adam mentioned, which is important. This is a trustless, which ultimately the proof of truth is make you all entitled to the gas and everything else. And one thing around the data and what we have is basically the timing, right? So you as an Oracle, you have all the basically control, but at the same time, you need to maintain your position as the Oracle to not only put the data, but continuously maintaining it and make sure that you reach consensus. Because if you don't, and someone is faster than you, eventually you're going to lose your position. It's only fair, right? It's actually, if I do Texas and then I don't do the updates, tomorrow Sufi comes in and is willing to actually make the update and reaches consensus with two other oracles that they were basically fast enough to be able to reach that, you're out, which means any future gas is not going to actually be allocated to you for that property. And ultimately depends on when you are in this staking schedule, you're going to lose the token. So this has basically as a race factor to it that you need to continuously doing that, but is exactly like actually like producing a piece of movie that you get this royalty that is going to come in forever in the form of actually the gas to be able to do that. But the price that you pay is the gas, and then ultimately be the first to continuously make sure that actually that data is up to date and reaches consensus. And the second part of that is that Adam mentioned is there is no limitation. If one person is a genius and finds a way using AI and everything else and just basically go and do 2,000 property, is gonna own 3%, 4%, 10% of the entire allocation of tokens in the United States. So just basically they can hold that position, and ultimately that is how it's going to work. And that is like being Satoshi and go mine the first 1 million token. Like he did that because he was actually the first one. So the timing in this matters, and the staking matters, and it's very different. And these are the things that made us fall in love with this. That all of the things that actually we try to put in place, which outcome driven, speed is a virtue. These are all the things probably you guys actually remember. The blockchain, it has it inherited to that, which so it's important to understand those things, because the game in the Oracle and actually blockchain is slightly different than the game that we play in other organizations as developers.
Yeah. And as before we
I
sort
have a question, guys.
Go ahead.
Yes, Mayor.
So let's say that proof of work is linked to some data source. We are pulling the data actually. So kind of where is the link between kind of data to token? Meaning I have some data structure, I validate it on the network, and let's say next week some other guy tries to validate the same data but kind of wants to add some additional data node there. How it's going to be combined?
Yeah, so basically to be able to mint something on the network right now, and this is something that we're going to adjust, it requires 3 oracles reach consensus. So
Okay.
it's a little bit of a push and pull and a competition. So number one is you don't want to basically, you want to encourage other oracles to be able to go get the data. You want to discourage those oracles to basically, if you have an IP to know, or even share some stuff with them in terms of the actual data. Because even if 3 of you reach consensus and the data is incorrectly put on the chain, me as an independent oracle, I'm going to come back and actually my data is different. I'm going to get rid of you guys. And to a degree, your reputation going to get a ding and your token staking going to get slashed. So it is a little bit of a competition that number one, it takes 3 to tango in here, which if you're coming with as an initial oracle, you might want to encourage 3 of your buddies to just say, hey, dude, I'm focusing on, state of California. I got the data. You guys got to go do this. And I want to get that consensus. So that's one. Eventually, we're going to reduce the 3 oracle consensus when we have a lot of stake and a lot of reputation on the platform. Because if you, as an oracle, you go in and put 3 data, reach always consensus, nobody can actually do that. Number one, you have a massive amount of stake and the tokens that you have in place, which you don't want to lose by just actually screwing that up. And you have a massive reputation. And at that point, we can basically say, you specifically with a high stake and high reputation, you need 1 consensus to be able to actually mint it, or eventually 0, because you are a trusted source now.
And a couple other things, the data is minted essentially at the data point level. So only the data points that reach consensus are put on chain, the rest are rejected. So it's not like a binary thing for 10 million properties in Florida. So you can get all that benefit. And then if people want to enhance the data, so let's say put new data on, then they get different tokens. So if you're really good with one thing like geospatial data, right? And you want to put the exact orientation of the front door of the house, like what direction it's facing. You can put that on chain, and that's 1 more data point for all those houses, and you get 1 more data points worth of tokens.
The two point of clarification, to be able to, from an efficiency perspective, the data is grouped. So, ultimately there's a group of data that is going to go in that is correlated, that typically they changes that data point level. And the second one, it's an important point that Adam is actually talking about, which we're going to emphasize. We're going to expand the data, and that's the job of the DAO, that basically the collective consensus of all the token holders to just say, what are the expansion that we're going to bring in? So you, as a token holder, you can basically vote for putting a data set on the network that you deemed valuable. And if all the other ones, they actually vote yes, then that can become a new data set that it has tokens allocation to that, all the things that you can go ahead and mint. So if you think in your market, and you can basically get everybody agreed from a governance perspective that the orientation of the house is something that is massively increased the transaction, you put that as part of the DAO. We put that as a smart contract associated to that, and then now you can just put those into the process. So the data is really grouped, but is categorized in 3 categories. Number one, what we call it the raw data, which matches what the basic data that exists on every single county. Things about the structure and the bedroom and the size and everything else. There is derived data, which is these are the data that you need to basically use algorithm and intelligence to just put that. For example, based on all the properties that you've seen, an estimated value of the property. Based on all the hurricane patterns that is happening, prediction of if this house is going to actually get hit this summer or not, right? Those are enhanced data that they are valuable. Their value is even higher than the raw data. That's something that you can be the GIS Oracle data to be able to go derive these information and put it on the net. So it's not purely transmitting data from one source to the other one, is basically calculating the data. And at that point, some of that enhanced data and derived data is not gonna have consensus because it's your, it's your data. So ultimately, those data, it's gonna basically get paid in utilization. That if you come up with the most fantastic price estimation model that exists, and everybody goes back and says, well, this data is actually matches what my sale price is, you can become the owner of that data, and that becomes your basically IP that is on the network. And nobody can compete with that unless somebody come up with a better calculation that ultimately have equivalent to your actually performance of data. So there's this type of expansion of data, which is what we call it the enhanced data, that is kind of different than the raw data that we talked about, which is go get it from this source and make sure that is actually transmitted accurately and get onto the platform. Did that make sense, Andrea?
Yeah, it makes sense. Although I see a lot of data problems.
As you guys sort of think about this, I think the easiest mental model of why this data is valuable is just thinking about it being perfectly available to an LLM. So today, if you go to ChatGPT and you ask it some real estate, it'll give you like a pretty good answer. But now imagine that the LLM has perfect county data, right? Perfect, all of this enhanced data, all of these photos, everything in its, in its sort of training, that LLM can answer any question you want. Show me houses within 100 meters of the beach with a north-facing front door, 3 bedrooms, green carpet, that I can afford on this type of salary with taxes that are not too high, and on and on and on and on. That LLM becomes your perfect real estate assistant. And then the LLM can, anything that needs visualization, it can open in a modal, open a listing app, open any of these other apps. So that's, for me, that is the killer use case of putting this data at the fingertips of the consumer in a very new, relevant format, which is perfectly suited for perfect data. So we're a little bit over. Sufi, any kind of closing comments, and then we let the guys go.
No. So this was the introductory call. We are holding, because we, in a spirit of open source and everything else, our goal is to basically continue having a community call on a regular basis. Basically the next one, and if some of the team members, and I got a couple of emails for the folks that they couldn't actually join, the athletes, and they want the recording. We're gonna have that. The next one is basically is to figure out the first step. So you guys can join that. We'll walk you through what is it that we can do immediately right now. What are the sources of data you can tap into? Walk you through what the team has done as oracles. Figure out how to share the CLIs, the scripts, the things that we put together with you guys to be able to start doing the work, and then we'll figure out what is that kind of ongoing communication to the team is, and just truly create a community of oracles. The last point that I want to make is, in the email, I send that out. So right now we are focusing on the oracle, but we do need, and in the future, there is significant demand for engineers in the foundation team that basically they need to do that, and that's a different construct, different construct than the oracle. And we thought being the oracle is the best way for you guys to both, see if you have the qualification. At the same time, it's just this is interesting for you guys. So we look for individuals to come participate, and ultimately, if you are an amazing oracle, and ultimately we see as a community that you can actually really contribute, then we can tap you to join the foundation team, and some of the big networks like actually Ethereum, they have hundreds of engineers. I don't think we're gonna be there immediately, but it's actually there's an opportunity for really A players to, in addition to oracles, which basically has significant amount of work that it exists, is on the foundation team to be able to think about and just establish better smart contracts and expansion of the data sets, and ultimately tap into kind of move down the layers to actually to more bare bone layers that we have. The team has done fantastic. Like I just basically we talked to some of the crypto guys with 15 years. My Kita, the team has done a great job of basically become like crypto experts. To be honest, I didn't see any gap between the our knowledge, which we're new in this actually space, and actually some of the experienced guys. But there are a lot of new things. We are basically doing a lot of firsts, even actually in a protocol. Like for example, the encrypted network, like that doesn't exist, which is kind of a little bit even contrary to the whole crypto community. Like how it's supposed to be open, what's the actually encryption? And we can talk about some of the use cases, and those are complex protocols, complex actually architecture that the foundation team needs to address. So that's the last thing. So look for another invite. I intend to just basically kind of use a regular community calls, maybe same time, same day, unless I just get a consensus that might be better to just do it, off hours or even off days, weekend. People might be able, because every single one of you guys have other engagement. So we'll adjust that accordingly. But next week, we're going to have another one, which basically is to walk through a Oracle 101 and start for whoever's interested to be able to get your hands dirty with actually getting data and start playing the role of Oracle. And then eventually we go to the broader team in the broader community to be able to tap into that. But that's kind of in a sense the next steps. Any other last minute thoughts, questions? It was great seeing everyone, and hopefully we keep seeing more and more of you guys joining the community.
Love seeing you guys. Thanks for joining.
Likewise.
Yeah, guys.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye bye.
Thank you.
See you guys.